We're down to the home stretch in our sub-battle for the month of May as we take on Bengals Breakdown. And you can see it is close between these two channels. Ravens Rundown at 405, Bengals Breakdown at 425. We want to show why we have the best fans in the AFC North, along with the rest of the National Football League. Sub it up. Sub for dubs this season, too. Join the family. Never miss a moment. Lock us in for the latest happenings on your Baltimore Ravens all off-season long. Let's win this sub-battle now. YouTube.com/RavensTV, and we'll get started with today's show. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us as we are giving our predictions and superlatives for the 2024 season for your Baltimore Ravens, along with the rest of the AFC North. We'll break down each and every team coming up on today's show. Let's start with the Cleveland Browns. The superlative I have for the Cleveland Browns is that they are the team in this division most likely to underachieve and fire their head coach this season. I know what some of you may be saying. Didn't Stefanski just win Coach of the Year? Yes, he did. And the Browns, to their credit, with losing Deshaun Watson last year, turning things over to Joe Flacco, they salvaged things pretty well last year, ultimately did get to the playoffs, lost in the wild card round to the Houston Texans in a game they were favored. But here's the bottom line when it comes to the Brownies. This team has been so inconsistent over the years and in the Kevin Stefanski era in Cleveland. You go back to 2019, 6-10. The year after that, they go 11-5. Then another step backwards, 8-9. Another step backwards, 7-10. And then last year, 11-6. Browns have been inconsistent, and I can't trust this team. And quite frankly, their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, I'm not sold on Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson's cooked. I think he's a shell of his former self from what he was with the Houston Texans. I don't trust him. I think that the Browns, this is a team that doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to get the job done, to win games when it counts, when it matters. And you look at their playoff success, it's certainly been lacking. They have one playoff win since 1995. Now, granted, they were inactive from 96 to 98. You guys know why. With their last playoff win coming from Baker Mayfield in 2020 at the Pittsburgh Steelers that year. But this is a team that I don't count on. I'm not getting hyped or excited about what the Cleveland Browns can do. I know that their defense is pretty solid, but I have concerns. I don't trust this Cleveland Browns team to go very far. I think the Browns take a major step backwards this year. I'm looking at a 7-9 season, which would be very underwhelming for that team. Gets them out of the playoff picture, and Stefanski finds himself looking for another job. The Browns are going to brown one way or the other. Now, let's ask you, when it comes to the AFC North, are the Ravens going to win this division? It's our pinned comment today. Let us know what you think. Y for yes, in for no. Will the Ravens win the division this year? Weigh in. Tell us what you think. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals now. The Bengals coming in off of a disappointing season last year where they were very injury-riddled across the board, from Joe Burrow to among others. But now you enter this year, and I think this is the team that's most likely to have consistent chemistry issues that hold this team back. We've heard that the Bengals, with their contract situation and the money that is being deviled out, that this team is kind of going all in on this year before they have to move on from some guys. Think about this, all right? Trey Hendrickson, he put in a trade request. He wants out of there. T. Higgins put in a trade request. He wants out of there. And they're likely to still keep these guys despite not wanting to be there. Usually that's not great when it comes to team chemistry of having guys in the locker room that don't want to be in that building. Jamar Chase, he's looking for a pay raise, and I think he's going to be with the Bengals for a long time, but he skipped OTAs. He's not around, so there's something to think about there. We'll see if something develops down the road when it comes to Jamar Chase. And then also Joe Burrow. Just because he's healthy now does not mean that there's going to be more injury issues that don't pile up with him. I have injury concerns when it comes to Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in this league. I've been a fan of him since he was at LSU and won that national title there with the LSU Tigers. Joe Burrow is one of the best in this league. But I think the injury concerns are something to think about, that it doesn't get better as you get older. He's already torn one ACL, right? He had a season-ending injury last year. Is something else going to happen with Joe Burrow now? Is he an injury-prone quarterback at this point? I think that's a fair question to ask. And Joe Burrow, he talked about his health recently, and he is even skeptical. He said, I'm going to be honest with myself about how my body's feeling. Maybe a little more cautious than I have been in years past. That's kind of been something that's been on my mind for the last couple of months. So it's in his head a bit. I still think the Bengals are going to have a good year. I think that they could win 11 games. There's so much talent on that team, even with these issues, that they should still be able to compete. But I'm not saying that the Bengals are going to win this division or be a Super Bowl contender. They still have a lot of figuring out to do, and I don't think Zach Taylor is that great of a coach either. So for me, there's some concerns with this Bengals team, maybe more so than people realize. We'll talk about the Steelers as well as the Ravens coming up in just a moment. But first, let's talk Nate Wiggins jerseys. On sale now at chatsports.com/Wiggins. We got the purple Nate Wiggins jersey. We got the white version, the black version, all sorts of different shapes and sizes, men's and women's options available for you. Go see for yourself. Chatsports.com/Wiggins. Father's Day around the corner. Looking for a gift to get dad? Might as well get him a Nate Wiggins jersey. Available while supplies last. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Go get one for yourself. Chatsports.com/Wiggins. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers now, led by head coach Mike Tomlin, who has been a consistent winner, but it's been a while since they won a playoff game. And they move on from Kenny Pickett. You bring in Russell Wilson along with Justin Fields, and both of them have some concerns. And I think you're going to have a quarterback controversy that potentially could never get solved between these two. I don't think Russ is that great of a quarterback anymore. I think he's got a bit of a noodle arm now, and he's taken a step back from the player that he was in Seattle. Meanwhile, Justin Fields, I think there's potential there for him to succeed. But, you know, he comes in as the backup in this situation. And if Russ goes down, I think Fields can come in and he can be good. But is he good enough to keep the job? Do they go back to Russ? There's an interesting back and forth here. And what kind of role do they find for Justin Fields here? You guys know the old adage, if you have two starting quarterbacks, you have no starting quarterback. And while both these guys are better than Kenny Pickett, I think that you could be talking about an ongoing quarterback controversy that never gets solved between two kind of just mid QBs, realistically speaking, between these two. Justin Fields was on his time in Pittsburgh so far. What does his role necessarily look like? NFL.com had this to say recently. For now, both Wilson and Fields will battle for the starting gig. It's possible Fields starts in a slash-type role early, like Cordell Stewart, a former Steelers quarterback himself, and eventually ends up as the starter in Pittsburgh. I think this Pittsburgh team is talented, but I think that quarterback issue is going to have some lingering problems, and that this Steelers team is going to struggle to get in rhythm. I think that this is about a 9-8 season. Another winning year for Mike Tomlin, but one that falls well short of expectations for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who's the better quarterback right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is it Russell Wilson or is it Justin Fields? Well, in the comment section, tell me what you think. Type Russ for Russell Wilson. Type Fields for Justin Fields. Which quarterback is the better option for the Steelers? Weigh in. Tell us what you think. The superlative for the Baltimore Ravens. This is the team, without question, that is the most likely to win the AFC North and get to the Super Bowl among these four teams. I think the Ravens are the only team that is a serious contender, and the rest of these teams are pretenders in this division. It's been an eventful offseason for the Baltimore Ravens. But even with all the free agents and everything that's going on, this team did not get worse. They still got better. You re-signed Justin Madubuike to a lot of money. You did lose Patrick Queen to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the Ravens feel optimistic about Trenton Simpson stepping into that role. You added Derrick Henry. The run game should be much improved. And you also have Rasheen Ali. Justice Hill is back, and Keaton Mitchell in his second year off of an impressive rookie campaign. You drafted Nate Wiggins from Clemson. Also brought in Roger Rosengarten. I like T.J. Tampa, Tez Walker. EDC did a really good job in the draft. And then you re-signed Kyle Van Noy. I know you lost Jadeveon Clowney, but Van Noy, it was vital to keep him around, and you got him locked up, and we'll see how that Ravens defense holds on its own. I think it's a good group. And when we talk about the consistency, what John Harbaugh has been able to do with this Ravens team over the years, just think about this. This team's only had one losing season since 2014. This is still the team to beat in the AFC North. That has not changed. John Harbaugh, I know some of you out there were wanting Mike McDonald to be the head coach, and you're going to miss him, and I think he's going to do a great job in Seattle. Don't get me wrong. But John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta, Lamar Jackson. You have one of the best head coach, GM, and quarterback trios in football. And that's the recipe. The Ravens have the recipe to succeed with all three boxes checked off, something that nobody else has in this division. I think this is still a 13-win football team. I think the Ravens go 13-4. They win the division, and they're in contention for that number one seed in the AFC. Who is the biggest threat to the Ravens in the AFC North? I think you could make a case for any of those three teams. Is it Cleveland? Is it Cincinnati? Or is it Pittsburgh? Weigh in the comment section. Tell me who you believe is the biggest threat to taking the crown away from the Ravens there in the AFC North. Thanks for joining us here on this edition of Ravens Rundown. For continuing Ravens coverage, you got to subscribe to the channel. Stay up to date. Lock us in for the latest happenings on your favorite team all off-season long. YouTube.com/RavensTV. To subscribe now for free, and we'll see you next time.